can you hear me? It looks like my sound is going out, but I don't know yet if it's if anyone can hear me. But let me go to the website just to make sure. Turn off that output, and I've got 3 different monitors, and so I need to put the right thing on the right monitor, and we'll get started here in a few minutes. So okay, let's see how this goes. I really hope I don't have internet issues. But I might, because Spectrum's coming out tomorrow, not today. That would have been too easy. So no internet, of course. Doesn't matter that I'm hardwired connected to this thing. Wait, am I? Yes. It doesn't matter that I've got a hardwired connection. Looks like there are 7 people watching. Of course, I can't tell because Spectrum. And of course, as if they know that I'm talking about them, they call now. Couldn't have left a message earlier when I was in Lowe's. No. Well, if you can see me, go ahead and tell me where you're tuning in from. I'm going to maybe stop it and start it again and see if that helps. Arg. Let's also check to see if it's showing on YouTube. Okay, so it looks like on YouTube it is showing. Hi, hello, praise the Lord. Logitech C920 webcam not getting detected in ProPresenter 6. Is there any known issues? Thanks for the advice on your last live session. Okay, so it's just my computer that for some reason does not want to do this. Well, let's try this. So let me try it here. See if that affects it and see if I can see everything. Okay. it looks like I'm on, and unfortunately I seem to have lost some of the people that I had. So, can you hear me? I do see myself. That's good. I am back, Michael. Hopefully this gets sorted out. I did not want commercials, so that wasn't good. Well, I've got the whole thing being recorded, so if it kicks me off, I'll just continue on with um, the recording, and we'll go from there. So. Okay, that all looks good. Now let's bring up the other chat. Okay. Okay, and we'll get started. That still looks good there. Let me bring up the chat. I have audio, watch it. Okay. Okay. So I've got a few people here from Wisconsin, Texas, Missouri. Got an email earlier from someone who is going to phone in from South Africa. I'm excited about that. And just some pretty good stuff. Low storage. Oh my gosh. I had plenty of storage. Let me stop the recording and swap that out and see if that'll fix it. My gosh, I am better than this. Okay, let me just check the settings here real quick and then we'll get started. Okay, let's see if this does it. Yay! Okay, so that's recording, and we'll go from there. Okay. Let me make sure that I'm still visible and all. Okay, I can see myself. So that is good. So let's get started with the tutorial, and then we'll go to questions afterwards. And I'm sorry for all this. I've been wrestling with this for probably 45 minutes, which is why I've got the cable person coming out tomorrow, despite me wanting them to be earlier. It just didn't happen. Okay, so let me get to the meat of what we're talking about right now, and then we'll go back through and answer your questions, okay? So this, as you know, is ProPresenter. Let me bring that to the forefront. The very first thing I want to say is that you do not need an additional module for stage display. So many people think, oh, I need the multi-screen module. I thought that myself. They also think, oh, I need a dual head to go or a triple head to go. I thought that myself. You do not. So stage display is built in, but you need a dedicated display for it to work. So some of the older computers can only do 2 displays. You need it to do 3 dedicated displays. The output for the congregation, the control screen, which is what you're seeing here, and then a third that is the stage display. So let's go into ProPresenter preferences, which on a Mac is Command comma. One of the fun keyboard shortcuts that I learned in doing the ProPresenter keyboard skin. And if we go into display, you'll notice that I have 3 displays here. Right now, this should be my control screen, but so that you can see it, I've actually moved it to where my stage display is normally. So you want to see 3 displays if you wanted to use the stage display. So what do the modules do then? Well, modules add additional functionality. So I'm going to demo these modules, and before you buy any module, you should always demo it. Why do I say that? Because Renewed Vision almost never does refunds on modules. So occasionally I'll talk to someone that says, oh, I bought the multi-screen module because I thought I needed that for stage display. Sorry. Or I bought the communication module when I really should have bought the master control module. Sorry. So that's why what you want to do is you want to click this button when church is not in session, when you're not using ProPresenter normally, and test it all out. Make sure you have everything that you can. You can normally return the hardware that goes along with it, but this is non-returnable. So let's go through these individual modules, and then, as I say, we'll go to your questions. So the first module we have here is the multi-screen module. This module enables you to send somewhat different outputs to different places. So let me show you with the dual screen layout that I have. You see over here, instead of 1 watermark, now we've got 2. The watermarks are only there because I'm in demo mode. And I can go through and I can put props on one screen and not on another. I can put slides. Let's say I didn't want slides on number 2. I can change the template on any 2 or 3 different ones, show videos from the video image bin, show live video. DVD would be an exception because of the way copy protection works. Renewed Vision isn't allowed to show the DVD on more than one screen. So that's why some people, I'm either advising you to or not advising you to. This is why some people I have heard will rip DVDs and then play them in ProPresenter natively. If you've got the multi-screen module, if you want it on multiple screens, that's a way to do it. A fun thing that some people do is they'll do an alternate template for lower thirds, etc., for a live stream. So that's an alternate use of it. Or you could use a different template for your lobby TVs, for example, all running off of a single machine. With a dual head-to-go or triple head-to-go from Matrox, you're basically tricking the computer into thinking that your display is twice as wide as it is or 3 times as wide as it is. So that's how that works. One thing that I'm cautioning people about now is the new version of macOS. If you're on Windows, this may not apply to you. But the new version of macOS that's coming out in the fall does not allow 32-bit apps. Matrox PowerDesk up here, right here, is a 32-bit app, and it's required to use the Matrox dual head and triple head to go. So I'm a little concerned what that's going to mean for that, because right now Renewed Vision says that they only support that. So who knows what that means. Maybe they're going to add support for the Data Link X4, which is another similar piece of hardware that's not technically supported. Maybe they're not. So, by the way, another fun thing, you can do triple wide, double wide. You can have different settings and have those change based on cues that you put on the slide. So the multi-screen module is a pretty cool little thing. HDSDI module. This is one of 2 modules that basically has 2 parts. If you use the AlphaKeyer module, then you get the HDSDI module as well. If you get the HDSDI module, you do not get the AlphaKeyer module. The AlphaKeyer module is about $1,000. The HDSDI module is much less expensive. So that is one of the 2 situations. Basically, you could use a Blackmagic Mini recorder, for example, as an SDI output. With the older Mac Minis, some people, to get a third display, they would use the HDSDI module and use the Blackmagic Mini monitor coming out Thunderbolt as a third display. So that's one reason to do that. If your entire system is SDI, that's another reason. If you want alpha channel, that's another reason. So that is this module, and this is, my church uses this module, and with the latest versions of ProPresenter, you can send both SDI through external hardware, or alpha through external hardware, and NDI at the same time. It used to be you had to choose between NDI and SDI. So that's another little advantage of this module. Edge blending module. Let's say you want one widescreen. You don't want it like this where it's divided. You want it just double wide. the edge blending module would be a way to do that, and it basically takes a little bit from the right side of the left screen and a little bit from the left side of the right screen if you're doing double wide, or a little bit from both sides of the middle screen if you're doing triple wide, and it allows you to blend those together seamlessly. And so that's what this is about. It enables you to do this, but this only works inside ProPresenter. So if you have other software that you want to use edge blending with, it won't work. So you should keep that in mind as you're doing this. A lot of times a great solution is the projectors themselves sometimes have edge blending, and you could use that and not use the edge blending module. The communication module is another one of those dual modules. So there's the MIDI module, which only communicates with MIDI, and that is a subset of the communication module. The communication module is not only MIDI, but also DMX and a couple of other formats. So you could talk to a video switcher that doesn't do MIDI or DMX, or you could do DMX to talk to a lighting board, etc. So that's what the communication module would do. If you only need MIDI, you only need to buy the MIDI module. So keep that in mind as well as you're looking at which of these to do. Now, one more of these modules that I haven't shown you yet is here under, it's actually not under advanced, it's under network. Yep. So under network, we have, first you need to enable network, because if you don't enable the network, none of these other things work. I have another video where I talk about these others, but let's first enable network, and then let's enable master control module. So if you didn't have any of these modules activated, your only choice would be slave. So you do not need a module to turn a ProPresenter instance into a slave with the master control module. You're paying for the master, which right now I'm demoing. So you'll notice that I only have the one running here. And so in just a second, it flashes up and then disappears, because it was sending the, hey, I'm a slave, I'm ready to be controlled by the master control module. And then when I switched to master, it showed that. So that's where that does that. So those are your different modules in ProPresenter. Let's see if there are any questions on that. I'm going to go back through and check those. There is a bit of a delay, so just a second here. Okay, so no questions on that, I don't think. I'm also going to check on my website, which is where I sent people, because I've got a lot of interaction on the YouTube channel, but I do not have interaction, as much at least, on my website where I actually sent people to go. So oh, there that is. Okay, let me look at the questions that we have, and we'll go from there. So Anil Kumar Dasari says that he has a Logitech C920 webcam, and it's not detecting in ProPresenter 6. Are there any known issues? Let's see here. Is this a C920? I can't remember if it is or not. Because I have one, a webcam, that I got to work earlier, but I do know that one of the things that I heard from one of the people in the ProPresenter users group, which if you're not a member of, you absolutely should be a member of, is he used to work for Renewed Vision, and he said that when they did the rewriting to go from ProPresenter 5 to ProPresenter 6, some of the webcams that worked before no longer work. So, for example, in ProPresenter 5, you could have a FireWire webcam. But since FireWire is really a dated interface, I don't believe it works anymore. That might be the same for the C920. This one that I use, I can't remember the model number of, but it in fact did work the last time I tried it. And if I can find, oh, there it is. Let me see if I plug it in, if it will work again. So I'm going to go back into ProPresenter. And let me first switch over to that, and we're going to give that a shot. So back in ProPresenter Preferences into Live Video, I've got this, and it's not showing. Let me actually restart ProPresenter and see if, now that it's plugged in when it started, if that did the trick. So, okay, now back into ProPresenter Preferences, and let's go to Live Video. FaceTime is showing. Ah, yeah, I've got a C615, but that is in fact showing. So if I go there and then go to View Live. No, it's under Actions, isn't it? Yes, it is. If I do that, oh, there I am. So you can tell that that does in fact work. So the C615 does work. Let me get that. That's not a very flattering shot. C615 does work. C920 does not. And that's based on your experience. I'm going to ask if let me change back over here. So the C920 isn't working. Is it working in other software? QuickTime would be the first thing I'd think of on a Mac, or Skype. That's a good cross-platform one where you can try it. Make sure it works in other situations, because the C615 that I've got, also a Logitech webcam, just a different version of it, seems to work for me. So I don't have a 920 to test, but I'd love to find that out for sure. So let's check for other questions. Okay, so, and Neil, I believe, yes, you're the same person, and you said that it's in Windows 7 you're having trouble with it also crashing. So, back to the C920, the question I'd have is, first off, can other software see it? Secondly, is there maybe a driver issue? Um, and then you can also try what I'm about to suggest here for troubleshooting purposes. One of my favorite little tricks is to make a new user account just for troubleshooting purposes and log into that account and see if ProPresenter behaves itself. If it does, then it's a user file that's causing this problem. And I've got a tutorial on the divide and conquer strategy that I use to figure out what it is. So basically you rename the folder that all the user files are in, let it rebuild those and see, oh, now on my main user account it works. If that's the case, you just need to figure out which of the several files in there are the ones that are having the problem. So what I do is I just create a new folder inside that, having renamed it the original name so that ProPresenter can find it again. Move half the files into that new folder. Doesn't even matter what the new folder is, as long as ProPresenter doesn't know to look there. Move half the files. Does it still work? If so, it's not one of the files that you didn't move. If it doesn't work, it's one of the files that you didn't move, and you just repeat that. And by doing half at a time, you can very quickly go through a bunch of the files. So you can, let's say you have 1,000 files, you do 500 and 500, then you determine which it is, and you do 250, then you determine which it is, and then you narrow it down to 125. You see how quickly we've gone from 1,000 to 125? Then 62 or so files, then 31 files, then 16 files, then 8 files, then 4 files, then 2 files, then 1 file. So the divide and conquer strategy can take a huge number of files and determine which one is the problem. Now, it doesn't work if you've got multiple files that have the problem, though. That's where you have a problem. But you could see, what files have been changed since the last time everything was hunky-dory and now. So that might also help you narrow it down, because if the file hasn't been changed since 2012, and then it's less likely to be the cause than the one that was changed the week before you started having these problems. So that's another troubleshooting strategy. Let me look and see if there are other questions here. So, and I'm going to try and get my website to work as well. Just a moment here. See if there are any questions there. I will say someone was asking, they said that they wanted to have 4 outputs and 2 of those needed to be identical. So basically they wanted the main screen to go 2 different places. and wanted to know if the Matrox dual head to go and the multi-screen module was the way to do that. While technically you could do that with the multi-screen module, that's a lot of money to spend when a distribution amplifier, also called a DA, most people call them splitters, although technically that's not what they are, will do the same thing for less money and more reliably without further taxing the computer. The Matrox dual head to go, triple head to go, the DataPath X4, all three of these devices trick the computer into thinking that it has a extra wide display, so it's pushing more pixels, whereas a distribution amplifier just takes a signal, duplicates it. Actually, what it does is it amplifies it. That's why it's a distribution amplifier. It amplifies it first, and then it splits it. And usually the signal is a little hotter than it was before it amplified it, after it's been split. So sometimes that'll also solve some problems with signal degradation that we see a lot with HDMI. I think a lot of people are able to get it about 50 feet, 30 some odd meters. No, not 30 meters, like 10 to 15 meters. There we go, like about 15 meters. So they can get an HDMI signal that long, but if your cable run is a little bit longer, it sometimes it'll work when you install it, and then over time the power drops, maybe the end gets a little corroded, not a lot, you might not even be able to see it, but the problem with digital is that the difference between just barely working and just barely not working can be minuscule, but just barely working looks like working perfectly, and just barely not working looks like not working at all, even though the signals are slightly different. So, let's see here. I had another question. Let me. Seems like my computer is having the issue here. So, Christopher, if you're actually on the website, I'm trying to get through to see that and answer your question. And now yep, looks like I've got no more questions on YouTube. Okay, there we go. So, okay. So I wanted to look at some of the recent questions I've got. I've got a folder of so many questions that people have sent in, and so I thought that I would go through some of those real quick while I've got you on the line, in case you have a question that I have answered for a person, but you haven't mentioned it, and you were thinking, oh, I ought to ask that, and you're just about to type. So Ray Sanford on my YouTube channel says, I keep getting an error, PowerPoint download helper not available. Importing PowerPoint on my PC is no problem, but the iMac keeps giving me the error message. Any help would be appreciated. The first question that I've got to ask is PowerPoint installed? Because ProPresenter uses PowerPoint in order to import PowerPoint files. So that might be counterintuitive to you. The second question is, which version of PowerPoint do you have? Because that matters. So if you've got PowerPoint 97, even if it still works on your Mac, the way that ProPresenter 6 works, it won't necessarily work. So you need to have a fairly recent version. I had a lot of good luck with Office 365, that version of PowerPoint, and the one immediately previous to that. So basically the last two versions of PowerPoint we had a lot of luck with, but anything older might give you some trouble. Jeanette Rootley asked, in response to a tutorial I did on using Keynote, she says, my Keynote fires up, but the screen says Presenter Notes 1 in tiny letters. My stage display shows the slide and upcoming slide. My computer shows the full slide meant for the projected screen. Any idea what I'm doing wrong? It's not necessarily what you're doing wrong. It's more that there is a setting inside Keynote that says which monitor does which thing, and so you need to make sure that the output is set to the monitor that's your projector or your large television, your LED wall, whatever your congregation sees. Make sure that is set correctly, because what ProPresenter basically does is it just leaves a shortcut and then it fires up Keynote. And if Keynote settings are wrong, it's not going to show correctly. So that's what that does. In response to an article I wrote on Church Tech Today, someone said, hi Paul, love what you're doing to help us not as technically inclined folks. Question, do you have a video or course that covers this more thoroughly? And then, quote, you can give your children's ministry, for example, a special web URL that only shows up on the LAN. When a child needs his or her parents, your children's ministry can send your kid check-in numbers directly. I changed the notifications from banner to alert, but I don't know how to do the bigger job of getting it all set up. I do have a video for that, and I gave him a link. Basically, I showed you earlier. Let me switch over to that so that you can see it. So, over here, we go into ProPresenter Preferences once again, and back to Network, and you need to make sure that that is selected, and then once that's done, you go into Messages up here. If you don't have that icon, you can go to View Messages, which is Control M. It shows up on the ProPresenter keyboard skin, by the way. And then we click this to give us more choices, and we have more messages that we can do. But this is where you actually want to click, and that will open up a web browser, which is opened on my other thing where that is. So basically you'll see it's paul-89.localcolon65178/html.messages. You copy that, give that to your kids ministry people, and if they have a Mac or an iOS device, they can just open that right up in Safari or whatever web browser and just type it, and it'll show up over here. But if they do not, then what you want to do is get the computer's IP address and substitute this for the with the computer's IP address, and that should work on Android or probably a Windows computer as well. So that's basically how you do it. You see this visible on network. That's how you create that. Click the plus, make sure you check visible on network. You can add these tokens, which are like variables in math or computer programming. So that is the basics of that. I went over it a little bit better in the tutorial. So, do we have any more questions? Let's see the YouTube. We get, Michael Moe asks here, we get a prompt that files will be updated every time ProPresenter 6 starts. Any ideas? Yeah, that typically means that you've either got a permissions problem. Here. Either you've got a permissions problem with one of the files, and so it's trying to update it, and it's not allowed to. So Google how to do a repair permissions on the computer, if it's a Mac. The other thing is sometimes it's a corrupted file that ProPresenter is trying to update and it can't. And so that's something that I see from time to time as well. And that is all the questions I'm seeing. I'm sorry that this chat room on my website doesn't seem to be working, but YouTube does. So we'll just go with that for right now. And I will try and get that sorted before the next time I do one of these, which I first wanted to say that the information that I covered in earlier was in the ProPresenter 6 hardware course, which you could buy for an individual for $29, but if you want to train more than one person, there's actually a better way to do it. I just wanted to show you some of the stuff that I cover in that course. That's choosing a ProPresenter computer, whether it's Windows or PC. I talk about how to do that, whether you should go with a laptop, a desktop, or an all-in-one, how to choose a Mac for ProPresenter, how to choose a Windows PC for ProPresenter, how to get the signal from point A to point B, different displays, other hardware like remote controls. There is a remote control that works perfectly fine with ProPresenter. It's pricey, but the only time it fails is when the battery dies. And I half expect them to release a version that if the battery dies, you could shake it or something and make it work, because it's so robust. And I talk about that in that particular course as well. Talking about stage displays, I talk about the SDI and alpha key modules. This is just the stuff I covered today. Edge blending, communication module, the MIDI module, teaching televisions. I've got some stuff on there. I know Andy Stanley made those kind of popular. There are other big name pastors that use those as well. So that's just one of the courses that I have for ProPresenter. And if we go here, you'll see all of the courses. I've got the operators course, the creation course, ProPresenter 5 and 6 for beginners, Video School 101, where I talk about the basics of video production, troubleshooting techniques. That's where I boil down my years of technical support into just a systematic way of helping you solve problems. I've got loops in here, the ProPresenter 5 operators course, which is very similar to the ProPresenter 6 one, but Pro 6 has more features, so there's more to it. ProPresenter 6 for pastors and teachers. That's another great course. If your pastor insists that it has to be made in PowerPoint, and he's got to be the one to do it because he likes the human beings and he likes the crazy animations, this is the one you need to give your pastor. I'm just saying, because I actually have a seminary degree and I talk to your pastor from the heart, biblically speaking, about why maybe that's not the right way to go through things. If you want to get more out of ProPresenter, the ProPresenter Hacks, Tips, and Tricks course, you can see just how much is included. I've got the hardware course I told you about, YouTube for Churches, my live streaming course, ProPresenter troubleshooting course. I touched on some of this stuff in there. There's just so much in here, and you can get this all. I did the math. The original price for that for one person is $628, but you can get that for a much lower price. $37 a month would be a good price, but if you go here to, I'm going to provide this link. It's TDM. Here, let me type that so that you can see it. TDM.FYI/CTU tutorial. That will take you here, and you can see that the current deal that I've got right now is not $37 a month. It's $1 for the first month and $34.97 a month after that. If you want to go yearly, you'll save even more. The $49.97 is the new price that hasn't fully taken effect yet, but that's coming. I need to tweak some of the things, but yearly is $347. So that's, you're basically getting 2 months for free, and the first month in the yearly one is free. Multi-site, if you've got 2 sites or more, you could imagine that 2 times 347 is 700, or 597 is a better way to do it. And these are whole church licenses, so this isn't one person. This is your whole tech team. So if you need to train your tech team, this is the way to go. And I will take a purchase order. You just click there and it sends me the email. You just tell me what you need. So if that sounds like a good deal for you, this does have a countdown, so it's a limited time thing, only because I know me, and if you're anything like me, then you mean to do stuff and you never quite get around to it. And I don't want you to be like me. I want you to have a little something in mind to say, okay, I'm going to do this now, as opposed to 2 years from now when you go, oh, I totally meant to do that and I forgot. Happens to the best of us. So that's why I have a countdown. It's not artificial scarcity. It's just to help you make a decision if it's something you need. If it's not, that's totally cool. I'm not trying to force anyone to do anything, but this is how I pay for all these tutorials that I do, is I cut out all the commercials, cut out all the fluff, organize them into courses based on topics, and make it nice and accessible for you and your entire church. So when you get someone new on your team, you can just set them free in Church Tech U and say, hey, take these at your leisure and I'll answer any questions you have. Because there might be something that you do a little bit differently than I teach, and that's fine. They'll get, 80% of the way there, and then in almost no time you can have them up and running. So that's why I've done that, to save you time and to eliminate the hassle of training new people, especially if you're not good at training people. So if that interests you, then by all means, tdm.fyi/CTU tutorial will take you right there. So I guess that's about it. I'm going to check one more time to see if I can get my website to work. Hopefully when the Spectrum person comes, all of my internet will work at the same time. I won't have things going in and out. And I thought that I was getting a good deal when they changed from Time Warner. I got more speed for the same amount of money, and it just doesn't work as well. So that's always fun when it's something like that. So let me one more time. Oh, do you have a preference between master control versus multi-screen for controlling lower thirds for live streams? It depends. If you'll be sending the same resolution, and if you're using a video switcher other than a Blackmagic video switcher, then the multi-screen module is a very inexpensive way to do it, because with the master control module you need 2 computers, another ProPresenter license. So if you only have the single license, you need to upgrade to the license that allows you to have multiple instances of it. So that's another expense. And you need the module. So that's a little more pricey. So the multi-screen module, I think, is a less expensive way, assuming your computer can handle it and everything. But it has to be the exact same resolution as the main output, and Blackmagic switchers for some reason do not like the output that the Matrox Dual had to go and Triple had to go use. You can get around that with a different, they make up-down cross converters that can get around that, but that's another couple $100. So you might be awash for savings. If it's a different resolution, then the master control module is the way to go for sure. You just move the same presentation over and apply a different template, and then they see each other and everything's great. So those are the pros and cons for that. And that was a question from Keith Sinti. And by the way, I did mention earlier that I do these trainings like this one for the Church Tech U folk all the time. And right now there are about 30 churches that are involved with that. So it's a smaller group that could potentially be there live than everyone. And so their questions are much more likely to be answered, and when they ask the question via email, I get to it a little bit faster too, because they're paying me specifically. So I did see thank you, and yep, from Keith, you're welcome. I'm glad I could sort that out. Let's see here. I will say that in my ProPresenter for live streaming course, I actually have a hack about how to simulate the Alpha Keyer module that saves like $500, $500 to $750, but I don't feel comfortable letting that out because the problem that I see is that since it's a hack, some people might want to call up Renewed Vision and say, well, Paul said I could do, and that would cause them more work. So I don't let that out publicly. But there are some exclusive tips and tricks in those courses that could save you a ton of money and enable you to do things that maybe you don't know ProPresenter can do. So that's something else. But if there are no other questions, I'll go ahead and hang up. It's been, well, it's a little after 9, so it's past the time that I said that I would go, and I enjoyed it. Hopefully the recording took, and I can upload that for later, and hopefully that will be good for the people that couldn't make it. Till next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford. Go out and change eternity.